In the history of jewelry making, few creations are as captivating and refined, so richly combining technical skill, artistic sensitivity, and cultural messaging, as the world of cameos and intaglios. These small but incredibly detailed creations have been present in human history since ancient times, serving not just as decoration but also as objects conveying social status, religious beliefs, or even political messages. Gemma is a general term for carved gemstones. When the carving is raised, it's called a cameo. When it's carved inward, it's called an intaglio. A cameo is a raised carving where the design stands out from the background. It's usually made from layered stone, shell, or glass. An intaglio is the opposite. The design is carved into the material, so the image is recessed. It was often used as a seal because it creates a raised impression. While intaglios were originally used for sealing, cameos were created purely as works of art. Even in ancient Greece, there was a fascination with gems, or carved gemstones. And these objects were more than just pretty. They had ritual, functional, or even magical meanings. The craftsman's work was incredibly precise. They carved the stone by hand, shaping the tiny details by feel. Common depictions included mythological figures like Heracles, Hermes, or Silenus, portraits of rulers and animal figures. Even the choice of material held symbolic meaning. Pluto was depicted on dark stone, Bacchus on amethyst, while Amphitrite was immortalized on aquamarine. The crafting of carved stones has been known since early antiquity, even from pre-Hellenic times. Cylindrical ones from Assyria, highly convex cameos from Egypt, and scarab gemstones have survived, which were also found among the Etruscans. These weren't just decorations. They often served as seals or amulets. The Egyptians were the first artistically fully developed stone carvers of antiquity. Besides hand-carving stones, they quickly adopted the technique of bow-driven, wheel carving. This was one of the most important and innovative methods of ancient stone carving, mainly used for creating intricately decorated cameos and intaglios. In Mycenaean culture, gemstones were shaped like large lenses, wave-polished pebbles, or apricot pits. Their carved stones were initially made from softer minerals like hematite, and later from harder materials, mainly varieties of quartz. Rock crystal, carnelian, chalcedony. Mycenaean gem carvings covered a wide range of subjects. We often find animal figures on them. Lions, griffins, sphinxes, and dragons decorated the surviving seal stones. We also know of a large number of carved stones depicting mysterious religious scenes. The Greeks first made engraved stones, set in rings or worn as pendants, as practical objects to authenticate contracts written on wax tablets. Later, they increasingly became ornaments and jewelry. The uses of concave and convex gemstones began to diverge at this time. Cameos were more often set in rings, while intaglios were worn as pendants or sewn onto clothing. In the 6th and 5th centuries BC, Etruscan stone carvers, while keeping the scarab form, created masterpieces that rivaled Greek gems. By the Roman era, they had become a common ornament, appearing on all sorts of clothing and everyday objects. We also know of uniquely crafted artistic gemstones. One of the most famous of these is the Gemma Augustea. This sardonyx carving served as a political statement. Augustus appears as Jupiter, next to the goddess Roma and other mythological figures. The whole scene condenses the message of imperial legitimacy and glory into a single carving. Gemstones of all sizes and types could be used. They were made from almost any precious stone, although harder stones like sapphires, rubies, and emeralds, or very soft stones, like opals, were used less often. Most often they were carved from rock crystal, amethyst, jasper, chalcedony, and onyx. Cameos weren't just fashionable in ancient times. During the Renaissance, the renewed interest in classical antiquity brought back the desire for gems. Cameos showed up on book bindings, jewelry, and even as medals. The Renaissance masters often copied the ancient pieces, but they adapted them to the style of their own time. Later, at the beginning of the 19th century, under Napoleon, this art form had a resurgence. During this new wave of classicism, the emperor, echoing Roman imperial imagery, sought to strengthen his political position, and he used art to do this. The famous cameo tiara, which Napoleon gifted to his wife Josephine, is evidence of this, as is the fact that the Swedish royal family later used the jewellery. Over the centuries, cameos and intaglios served many purposes. They took on religious and symbolic meanings, carried political messages, and often became symbols of power and fame. In Renaissance Europe, these jewels were widely worn, but they really became super popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. Georgian cameos and intaglios reflect the era's diverse artistic styles, social customs, and technical advancements. Neoclassicism's influence was especially strong. A fascination with Greco-Roman antiquity appeared in the jewellery. Because of this, cameos and intaglios often featured mythological scenes, gods and goddesses, and classical portraits. During this time, intaglios mainly appeared as seal rings and fob seals. They weren't just practical for things like authenticating letters and official documents, they were also status symbols. Besides the owner's monogram, family crest, or motto, you'd often find allegorical or moralizing depictions, reflecting the wearer's personal values, social standing, or worldview. Georgian-era jewelry making represented an exceptionally high level of technical skill. Cameos and intaglios were mainly carved from hard gemstones, agate, carnelian, bloodstone, onyx, jasper, but there were also pieces made of ruby, diamond, or glass. Multicolored layered stones were especially popular because they allowed for the creation of contrasting three-dimensional reliefs and fine details. Georgian-era cameos and intaglios weren't just functional. They also represented the highest artistic achievements of the era in terms of beauty, while also expressing the owner's personal story, identity, and social status. Victorian cameos and intaglios show how art and society mixed together back then. Lots of styles, like Romantic, Neoclassical, Etruscan, Egyptian, Gothic, Renaissance, arts and crafts, and Art Nouveau, all influenced how this jewellery looked. Cameos got super popular during this time, partly because Queen Victoria really liked them. People started using different materials too. Besides fancy gems, shells became really popular because they were easier to carve. This meant people could make bigger cameos with lots of cool details. Victorian cameos covered a wide range of subjects, from romantic feelings and family bonds to portraits, scenes from mythology, historical events, and religious motifs. They often depicted women's profiles, young ladies, couples in love, allegorical figures, or people dressed in the fashion of the time. Symbolism was super important. Hearts, snakes, birds, and flowers stood for love, passion, freedom, and new beginnings. Cameos held a special place in mourning jewellery, especially those carved from jet and lava. These became fashionable during Queen Victoria's time of mourning. Intaglios became less common during this time, as seals became less important. But they were still made with family crests, monograms, and classical themes, showing a fondness for the past. Victorian cameos and intaglios often appeared in gold or silver settings. They were decorated with pearls, diamonds, enamel, or fine engraving, and both the quality of the craftsmanship and the choice of themes reflect the artistic and emotional richness of the era. From the late 1700s to today, Wedgwood cameos have been a one-of-a-kind example of ceramic art. They were developed by the famous English Wedgwood factory. These raised decorations are usually made of bluish green or white jasperware. They're decorated with fine raised designs, often with scenes from classic Greek and Roman myths, pictures of gods or symbolic figures. Thanks to technological innovation, the precise detail and color contrast of Wedgwood cameos reached a level of quality never seen before. Unlike traditional cameos carved from multiple layers of stone, these creations were formed on the molded and polished surface of ceramic. During the 19th and 20th centuries, Wedgwood cameos were increasingly incorporated into jewellery, such as pendants, rings, or necklaces, where the ceramic ornament was set in silver or gold, highlighting the artistic motifs. The style of Wedgwood cameos reflects the influence of neoclassicism, yet they remained fashionable in the modern era, primarily due to their simple elegance and respect for historical traditions. When trying to spot a fake, look closely at the jasperware's unique texture, how consistent the raised designs are, and the quality of the settings. Checking for factory marks and making sure it fits with the history of the time are also really important. Making cameos and intaglios was a complex, time-consuming and precise process that demanded serious skill. The base material, which could be agate, onyx, carnelian, amethyst, or even chalcedony, was first cut into the proper shape. For cameos, the artisan skillfully used the layers of the material, like the dark and light layers of onyx, to create a contrasting raised design. Technically, a cameo is made by carving away the background material to create a raised image. The artist's goal is to achieve a true relief effect. It's essentially making a miniature sculpture that stands out in contrast. For this, they mostly choose a material that has different colored layers, usually from the same type of stone, although there are some exceptions. This idea works best with agate and onyx. The details were carved by hand, and the surface was often polished so that even the smallest details would be sharp and clear. For intaglios, the artists carved into the material so that when used as a seal, the carved design would appear raised, like a mirror image. The tiny details were created by carving at different depths, and this required a lot of skill and experience. Cameos and intaglios often show mythological scenes, gods and goddesses like Zeus, Leda, and Venus, portraits of famous people, and allegorical figures. Each motif has its own meaning and symbolism, which makes these pieces even more interesting and valuable for collectors. Even after their popularity in the 19th century, they have kept their special charm, and today we love to wear them set in various kinds of jewelry. While they once served as status symbols, today they mainly express our respect for art, history, and craftsmanship. Owning an antique cameo or intaglio is like holding a piece of humanity's artistic and cultural heritage, a tiny yet incredibly detailed window to the past, which can still speak to and enchant us across millennia. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time, exploring the world of cameos and intaglios. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content about antique jewelry and gemstones, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like and share this video with anyone who is also fascinated by the beauty of the past. Leave a comment below telling me which time period or jewelry type interests you the most and what you'd like to see in future videos. See you next time!